everybody. Welcome to our next episode of Draw the Rest of the Owl, the show where we figure out the steps in between draw two circles and draw the rest of the owl. Just a reminder, I'm doing this to make my skills better. You're doing this to make your skills better. I'm just using materials that I have at home. I didn't buy any special pencils or special paper. If you happen to have those things, that is awesome. You go ahead and use those. But I just kind of want to learn how to do this with what I have. So, let's go. Last time we did like shading and filling in spaces. Today, we're going to do lines and then turn that into shapes. So, one thing with lines, like I have a project with first grade where we just practice using a ruler. Because that's actually a skill. You may not realize it. But using a skill, being able to hold that ruler down and make a nice line, that's a skill. That's something that some people can't do. Just make sure you're putting your weight up against the ruler and you're holding that ruler really solid. Now that being said, there's plenty of reasons why you could use a ruler, but you also need to be able to try and do them just freehand, right? So remember, you can move that paper however you want. So let's just draw some lines. We're going to try and make them as straight as we can, but they're always, they're not going to be perfect. I'm trying to space these out approximately equal. Something you're going to notice is if you go super slow versus like depending on how you're using it, your lines are going to look different, right? Like super fast is not as dark and it's got a little more of a swoop to it. If you're going super slow, I guess you can do that. My hands happen to shake, so sometimes I have trouble doing the slower or the medium. You practice, you figure out what you want, okay? Now, these are straight lines, obviously. Next, let's try some curvy lines. This is actually something I talk about with my kindergartners. So a curvy line is anything that is more of that rounded shape. So you could have bumps. You can have loops. You can have, I don't know what that is. You can just have lines that happen to be curved. Okay? Like, take a second and come up with some lines. Some lines that are curvy, right? We're looking for stuff that doesn't have those sharp points. Now, like this has points on it, but for the most part it's curvy, right? Then you have angled lines, and that's where you have those sharp corners. So like our zigzags, right? Or maybe some random thing. And this is, if you're using art terms, if you're doing these kind of curved, more just freehand lines, that's generally called more organic, because it's more like natural, whereas this would be more geometric because it's more like shapes. But don't worry about that too much. Okay? So make yourself some angled lines. And remember, our straight lines can go at an angle, they can go vertical. Let's give this a try where we, instead of just moving a wrist, let's try it with the whole arm here. Interesting. It's good for those big swooping motions, but I think I was trying to do some... I'm trying to make sure I'm using my whole arm while I'm doing this and not just my wrist. Let's see. Okay, so I'm using my whole arm. It's hard to do like detailed stuff. So for big lines, if you want to use your whole arm, cool. If you want to use just your wrist or just your fingers, cool beans. Now, something that I get to point out when I teach lines and stuff to my kindergartners is the difference between a line and a shape. Now, here's the difference. A shape is something where you have the lines, but it completely closes up. Like this is a shape because it completely closes. However, this is technically a curved line because it doesn't close. Now, you know, when we're doing stuff later, I'm like, oh, kind of make this kind of shape. You're going to know what I mean. But if we're using like real technical terms, this would be a curved line. This would be a shape, right? And then if you want to go even further, if you color it in, that's called a dot. Okay? So that's the difference. You have shape, curved line, dot. Okay? Hooray! So, we're going to make some basic shapes, right? Now, if you want to take some time and practice with a ruler, cool beans, but doing it with a ruler isn't going to give us the same amount of comfort and ease with drawing. Because if you're using a ruler, there's times when you really should use a ruler. And then there's times where it's like, well, if I really want what I want, you know, it's better not to. So if we're using a triangle, or with a ruler, triangle, and if you wanted to get out like a protractor or something to make sure all the angles are perfect, like however many degrees this is versus this, go learn some geometry. Figure out these angles. Woo. Okay, so I mean, that's using a ruler, but and you can see I'm moving my hand and my arm around. And so let's try and make some triangles that are about the same length on each side, right? Okay. So we're looking at it. Okay. If we're going to make this bottom as long as those, we probably need to make it go out a little bit more. You can see I'm going back over it, because remember, if you do it light, you can always go back and erase and redo it. Okay, it's like if you're doing this and you look, you're like, oh man, that one's definitely not as long as these two. You just keep it going. Eventually you'll be able to get to the right size. Now it might take a while. No, that's kind of, never mind. Experiment. And it's okay. Look, we had an experiment. Did it work out exactly how I planned? Nope. But did the paper catch on fire? Nope. Okay. So let's try a square, right? You know, if we're using our ruler here. So a square is a kind of rectangle, but not all rectangles are squares. Okay? A square is a rectangle that has all of the sides completely equal. Oops. Whereas a rectangle is just any four-sided shape. Technically, if it's got four sides, it's also called a quadrilateral. Check my spelling. Or if you have the sides that are perfectly parallel, where like no matter what they're exactly the same direction, that's also called like a parallelogram. But you know, we're not going to be doing over geometry stuff. We're just trying to learn how to draw. So we did that with a ruler. So let's try it with just our hand. Okay. See, I'm making these little ones, these little tiny lines. I mean, if you want to measure this out exactly, I mean, that's your prerogative. You could measure, okay, here's there, here's there. Something to keep in mind if you are using a ruler, this is a big deal. Some rulers have the 0 point not at the end. Okay, so there's this extra space here. So if you were to measure from here to here, that's not actually a centimeter. That's like, gosh, that's almost 1.5 centimeters. Okay, so make some rulers, if it doesn't have any space there, it doesn't have anything, it might be the very end. So you know, keep in mind. So let's see, that's there. Chink, 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 chink. And we can fix it from there, huh? Okay, or okay, you can do some long quadrilaterals, meaning it has four sides. We generally call these rectangles. Okay. A diamond is just, it's also a quadrilateral because it has four sides. That's just, you have the points going up and down and side to side, so vertical and horizontal instead of other directions, right? Then we can make stars, right? So we have the basic star that you learned. I think I remember learning how to do this star in first grade because I remember I learned it and then I covered my entire sheet of paper with them, and my teacher was like, "That's not the homework. That's a bunch of stars." So you know, up, down, over, across, down. Up, down, over, across, down. Bump, 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 bump. Bump, 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 bump. Okay? Fill a whole sheet of paper with just some stars, right? Trying to explain it, it's like you're making a letter A, but then you're going to go across before you go the straight part, and then you're like, oh, I just connected down. If you want a star that has 6 points on it, or a Star of David if you're getting into the cultural part of it, what you do is you take two triangles and you put them over each other. So here is one triangle, and then we're going to do an upside down triangle. And there you go. You have a star that has 6 points on it. The points are called vertices. Anyway, so cool beans for that. If you want to make a star that has 8 points on it, like you are super cool, what you do is you use squares instead of triangles. Okay, now I'm going to put a diamond on top of that, which is, remember, just a square except it's turned. So if you look, we have is that perfect? No. But does it work? Yes. You got to understand how different shapes come together to make other shapes. So you can see we use triangles, we use squares. You could use any shape with the straight lines to make a different kind of thing, but we're going to stop with these today. So far we've been doing those geometric, those angled lines. So now we're going to get into circles. And circles, everyone wishes they could make a perfect circle in one go, and I am not one of those people that can do that, okay? The way I kind of do it is I just kind of do a lot of lines, and then I kind of find my circle in there. Woo. Like if you have a compass, you can make a perfect one, or if you have round things, you can be like, ooh, I have a circle. But try making some circles just by hand. Like, no, they're not going to be perfect. Try making some small circles, where you do it in a nice fluid motion. Try making some big circles. And I can look like this line's getting kind of straight. So I need to just kind of... This is where turning your paper is like a really good thing, right? Okay. Perfect circle? No. Is it a circle? Yes. Something you can do to like try to prep for circles is try making a spiral, right? So if you go and try and make it kind of equal. Try. Okay. So you get that round motion with your hand. And try doing it the other way. I did it this way. Now try doing it the other way. Okay. I'll show you in one of the books I have here. They pull a how to draw the rest of the owl stunt on us right away. Look at this. They have, okay, draw a circle. Now make it a ball. Bam! It's going to be perfect. Don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're not working on perfect. We're working on trying. Okay? We're just learning our shapes and our feels. One of them says to try a crescent moon, which to do freehand, mine always look kind of like chunky bananas. A better way to do it is to make a circle and then draw another circle next to it. It's like about the same size. And then you erase the extra. Oh my gosh, you have a crescent! Okay. So what I want you to do for now is just practice doing some shapes. Now if you're doing these circles, it says also work on ovals. So ovals are those curvy shapes, but they aren't necessarily equal all the way around. Like a circle is the square of curved lines, right? So an oval would mean that it's not necessarily... So oval or ellipse. I always spell ellipse wrong when I do it, so I'm not even gonna bother. But you can make it, like pill shaped. You can make that really wide shaped. You can make that really narrow shaped. You can make it pointy. Oh my gosh, it's an eyeball. Ah. Anyway, just practice your shapes. So remember, we have our different kinds of lines that we started with. So we had our straight lines, we had our curved lines, we had our angled lines. And then to go to shapes, remember, if it doesn't close up, it's technically not a shape, but you know, whatever. So it's a closed figure. If you color it in, it's a dot. We did some triangles. We did some squares, which are kind of rectangle, but they're all equal. We did some diamonds. We did some 5-pointed stars, a 6-pointed star, an 8-pointed star. And we did ourselves some circles and some ellipses. And you know what? That's a lot. So just take some time, practice all of those things. And if you find one that's like really hard for you, that means you should practice it some more. So if you end up with a whole sheet of paper full of weird lopsided circles, that's okay, because each time, whether you realize it or not, you're training your muscles how to do it right. Okay? So that is all we are going to do today on Draw the Rest of the Owl. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Now, if you are an actual art person and you're watching this and you're like, wow, Mrs. Miller, you're teaching this all entirely wrong. There's a better way to do this. Feel free to comment and let me know. Just be nice, because I am working at the same level as my students. Okay? I'm just figuring it out because all the instructions I've ever had are like this picture. So, hope to see you next time. Bye.